Abandoned dog feeds wheelchair-bound girl. Then her father changes her life. Michael Johnson gripped the steering wheel tightly as he tried to hold back tears. The appointment with his daughter Emma's neurologist had been devastating. The 9-year-old would need intensive and expensive physical therapy to have any chance of walking again after the accident she'd suffered 6 months earlier. That's when he noticed in the rearview mirror a thin caramel-colored dog following his car for the 3rd time that week. The animal carried a small blue bowl in its mouth with what looked like cookies inside. Michael slowed down, intrigued by the dog's persistence, never imagining that this simple act would completely change his family's fate. The New Beginnings Institute, a special school on the outskirts of Denver, had become Emma's new educational home. The once outgoing and cheerful girl now spent recess isolated from her classmates, watching with sad eyes as the other children played. Since the accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down, Emma had withdrawn into a private world of silence and sorrow. The teachers tried to include her, but she resisted any attempts at connection. "Emma, don't you want to go play with Madison and Tyler? They're calling for you," the aide Margaret tried for the 3rd time, a patient woman who had grown fond of the girl. "No, I don't. I'd rather stay here," Emma replied, adjusting her colorful glasses and looking away. Margaret sighed, feeling helpless. In her 30 years working with special needs children, few cases had touched her heart like Emma's. The girl had lost her mother, Sarah, to a sudden illness when she was just 5. And now, after the car accident, she had lost her mobility too. It was too much pain for such a young child to bear. "Auntie, look! What's that?" Emma suddenly asked, pointing toward the side gate of the courtyard. Margaret turned and saw a medium-sized dog with caramel fur and amber eyes standing at the entrance. The animal seemed hesitant, as if assessing the surroundings. In its mouth it carried a small blue plastic bowl. "It's a dog, sweetheart. It looks lost," Margaret replied, concerned. Animals weren't allowed at the institute, and the director, Richard, was extremely strict about hygiene and safety rules. To everyone's surprise, the dog crossed the courtyard, ignoring the other children, and walked straight to Emma. Gently, it placed the blue bowl in the girl's lap. Inside were a few misshapen cookies. Emma, who hadn't shown any emotion beyond sadness or apathy for months, smiled so genuinely that Margaret felt her eyes well up. The aide approached cautiously, afraid the dog might be aggressive, but it simply sat beside the wheelchair, looking at Emma with what seemed like expectation. "Did he bring this for me?" Emma asked, her voice trembling with emotion as she timidly petted the dog's head. "It looks like it, sweetheart," Margaret replied, equally moved. The moment was interrupted by the stern voice of Director Richard. "What's going on here? Who let this animal into the institute?" he demanded, striding over with a severe expression. "Director, it came in on its own and brought these cookies for Emma," Margaret explained, positioning herself protectively between the dog and the man. "This is unacceptable. Stray animals can carry diseases, and we're dealing with vulnerable children. Besides, those cookies could be contaminated," Richard argued, gesturing to one of the security guards. "Please remove this animal immediately, and throw away that food." "No!" Emma cried, clutching the bowl to her chest. It was the first time the girl had raised her voice since arriving at the institute. "He's my friend!" The director hesitated, unaccustomed to seeing any reaction from the girl who usually stayed quiet in a corner. However, the rules were clear. "I'm sorry, Emma, but we can't allow animals at school. It's a safety issue." With tears streaming down her face, Emma watched as the security guard gently led the dog out of the gates. The animal looked back several times as if reluctant to leave the girl. "Will he come back tomorrow?" Emma asked Margaret, wiping her tears with the back of her hands. "I don't know, sweetheart, but let's wait and see, okay?" replied the caregiver, feeling a mix of hope and worry. That afternoon, when Michael came to pick Emma up from the institute, he found his daughter different. There was a spark in her eyes he hadn't seen in months. "Dad, you won't believe it. A dog came to see me today and brought me cookies," Emma said excitedly as Michael helped her into the adapted car. Michael smiled, thinking his daughter was making up a story, something she used to do before the accident. He was happy to see this glimpse of Emma's old self, even if it was just imagination. "Really, sweetie?" "And what did this dog look like?" he asked, playing along. He was caramel-colored with lighter spots on his belly and had honey-colored eyes. "And guess what? He carried a blue bowl in his mouth," Emma explained, gesturing animatedly with her hands. Michael froze. That description matched exactly the dog that had been following his car. "Emma, did this really happen?" he asked, adjusting the rearview mirror to look at her. "Yes, Dad. Director Richard made him leave, but Aunt Margaret said he might come back tomorrow." A chill ran down Michael's spine. Coincidences like this were too rare. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Michael sat at the small desk in their modest apartment's living room, reviewing bills while thinking about the situation. Since Sarah's departure, followed by the accident that left Emma in a wheelchair, life had become a constant struggle. His salary as an accountant at a mid-sized company barely covered his daughter's medical expenses, and the hope of seeing her walk again seemed more distant than ever. The neurologist, Dr. Jennifer, had been clear that morning. "Michael, Emma needs specialized physical therapy. The insurance only covers 10 sessions a month, but she'd need at least 30 to have a real chance of significant recovery." The cost of the extra sessions was astronomical for his already tight budget. Michael ran his hands through his prematurely graying hair, just 38 years old, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. A noise in the backyard interrupted his thoughts. He grabbed a flashlight and went to check. To his surprise, lying under the small mango tree Sarah had planted years ago was the caramel-colored dog. Beside him, the famous blue bowl, now empty. "What do you want, buddy?" Michael murmured, approaching cautiously. The dog lifted his head and looked at him with eyes that seemed to understand the question. Without showing fear, he stood up, picked up the bowl in his mouth, and slowly walked toward Michael. "You're persistent, huh?" Michael said, crouching to the dog's level. "Were you really the one who visited my daughter today?" As if he understood, the dog wagged his tail and placed the bowl at Michael's feet. "Look, we can't keep you. I already have enough problems to handle," he explained, feeling a little silly for talking to a dog. Just then, a sleepy voice called from the back door. "Dad? Who are you talking to?" It was Emma, who had dragged herself from bed to her wheelchair after hearing voices in the backyard. "Emma, what are you doing awake at this hour?" asked Michael, concerned. The girl's response was a joyful shout. "It's him, Dad, it's the school dog," she exclaimed, maneuvering her wheelchair to the backyard with a skill that surprised Michael. The dog, upon seeing Emma, ran toward her but stopped at a respectful distance, as if understanding the fragility of the situation. Emma reached out her hand, and the animal approached to sniff it before delicately licking her fingers. "He likes me, Dad. Can we keep him? Please," Emma begged, with a sparkle in her eyes that Michael hadn't seen since before the accident. "Honey, it's not that simple. We don't know where he came from. He might belong to someone." "No, Dad, he doesn't have a collar. And look how skinny he is," Emma argued, running her hand over the dog's slightly visible ribs. "He needs us." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael looked at his daughter, then at the dog, and finally at the starry sky, as if searching for a sign from Sarah. What would his wife have done in this situation? Probably opened her arms and her heart, just as she always had in life. "Just for tonight, Emma. Tomorrow we'll look for his owner, okay?" Michael conceded, knowing he was likely making a mistake. The smile that lit up Emma's face almost made up for all his worries. "I'm going to call him Cookie because of the little cookies he brought me," the girl declared, beaming. Michael set up a corner in the backyard with an old blanket and a bowl of water for their unexpected guest. He watched through the window as Emma, who had insisted on staying outside a little longer, chatted excitedly with Cookie as if they were old friends. It was the first time in 6 months he'd seen his daughter truly happy. When he finally convinced Emma to go back to bed, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you think Mom sent Cookie to take care of me?" Michael swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. "Who knows, sweetheart? Your mom always knew what you needed," he replied, his voice thick as he helped her lie down. "I knew it," Emma exclaimed with childlike certainty. Mom's still watching over us even from heaven." That night, Michael slept poorly, torn between the joy of seeing his daughter happy again and the worry of taking on another responsibility he couldn't afford. Money was already tight enough with medical bills, the apartment payments, and the costs of the special school. How could he care for a dog too? In the morning, as he prepared breakfast, he heard Emma's bright laughter coming from the backyard. Peering through the window, he saw his daughter seated in her wheelchair, feeding Cookie pieces of bread. "Look, Dad, he knows how to shake," Emma demonstrated excitedly as the dog gently placed his paw in her outstretched hand. Michael couldn't bring himself to repeat that the dog was only staying for one night. Instead, he served breakfast and began planning how to find Cookie's owner without breaking his daughter's heart. "Dad, can I take Cookie to school today?" Emma asked between sips of milk. "No, honey, remember the principal doesn't allow pets at the institute," Michael replied gently. "But he was there yesterday, and it was so cool. Everyone was looking at me. Not like poor girl in the wheelchair, but because I had a special friend." The words struck Michael like a blow. He hadn't realized how much his daughter suffered from others' pitying stares. "Even so, we have to respect the school's rules," he insisted, trying to be reasonable. "Besides, I'll look for Cookie's owner today." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Dad, don't do this. What if his owner is mean? What if he's the one who abandoned Cookie?" "Emma, we can't just keep a dog that might have a family looking for him," Michael explained, though his heart ached seeing his daughter's distress. "He chose us, Dad. He came to me, remember?" Emma argued with logic that was hard to refute. Michael sighed, sensing his impending defeat. "Here's what I'll do. I'll check the shelters and neighborhood posts for any lost dog signs. If we don't find his owner in a week, we can consider keeping him. But we'll need to take him to the vet, make sure he's healthy, check for a microchip." Emma didn't even let him finish, launching forward in her seat to hug him. "Thank you, Dad. You're the best dad in the world." As he drove Emma to the institute that morning, Michael reflected on how one simple dog had brought more joy to their home in a single night than anything had in the past 6 months. In the back seat, Emma chatted endlessly about all the things she'd do with Cookie when she got home from school. When they arrived at the institute, they were greeted by Margaret, who smiled at Emma's excitement. "Good morning, sweetheart. You seem very happy today," the aide remarked, helping the girl out of the car. "Aunt Margaret, yesterday's dog, came to our house. My dad let him sleep in the backyard, and now we might get to keep him," Emma said, nearly bouncing in her chair with excitement. Margaret glanced at Michael with a raised eyebrow. "Is that so?" "Unfortunately, yes," Michael confirmed with a resigned smile. "The little rascal showed up in our yard last night. I'm trying to find his owner, but Emma's already completely attached." "How wonderful!" Margaret exclaimed. "You know, in 30 years working with special needs children, I've seen many surprising things, but a dog choosing a child like this, that's truly special." "It's just a lost dog, Margaret," Michael replied, trying to stay grounded. "Maybe. But look how different Emma is today," the aide pointed out. "I haven't seen this girl smile like that since she arrived at the institute." As he said goodbye to Emma, Michael promised to pick her up later and mentioned he'd go to work and then look for information about Cookie. The girl made him swear not to give the dog to anyone without talking to her first. On his way to the office, Michael stopped at a few posts to check for lost pet flyers, but found nothing about a caramel-colored dog. He also stopped by a nearby vet clinic and left Cookie's description in case someone came looking. "If no one claims him in a week, it'd be good to bring him in so we can check for a microchip and do a checkup," the receptionist recommended. "But be prepared. Vet bills aren't cheap. Another expense for your already tight budget." Michael thanked her and headed to work, torn between wanting to see his daughter happy and the financial reality they faced. At the office, he was called into an unexpected meeting with his boss, Robert Wilson, a pragmatic man who ran the company with an iron fist. "Johnson, I'll be direct," Robert began as soon as Michael sat down. "The company is restructuring, and we need to cut costs." Michael felt a weight in his stomach. He'd been through similar situations at other companies and knew exactly how this would end. "We're offering a voluntary severance package, 3 months' salary as compensation, plus prorated vacation and holiday pay, Robert continued, sliding a folder of documents toward Michael. Think it over, you have until the end of the week to decide. After that, I can't guarantee the same terms. The message was clear. Accept the deal or be fired without the additional benefits. It was the last thing Michael needed at that moment. Mr. Wilson, as you know, I have a daughter with special needs. I really need this job, he argued, his mouth dry. I understand your situation, Johnson, and I'm sorry, but these are corporate decisions beyond my control, replied Robert, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. Michael spent the rest of the day working on autopilot, his mind racing over how they would survive with only 3 months of guaranteed pay. Emma's physical therapy sessions, her medications, the specialized school, it all cost a fortune. At the end of his shift, he drove to the institute to pick up Emma, trying to hide his worry. To his surprise, he found her in the courtyard, surrounded by other children. She was showing them something on her phone, probably photos of Cookie she had taken that morning. "Dad?" Emma exclaimed when she saw him, her eyes shining. "Guess what happened today? Teacher Rebecca said we can do a project on therapy animals, and I'm going to talk about Cookie." Michael forced a smile, not wanting to ruin his daughter's happiness with his own worries. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Margaret approached as Michael helped Emma into the car. "Mr. Johnson, may I have a quick word?" "Of course, Margaret. Is something wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Quite the opposite. I wanted to tell you that today was a turning point for Emma. For the first time, she actively participated in class, answered questions, and during recess, it was the other children who came to her, all because of the stories about the dog." Michael felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, he was overjoyed by Emma's progress. On the other, how could he tell her they might not be able to keep the dog, given their financial situation? "That's wonderful to hear, Margaret. Emma has really bonded with him," he said, closing the car door. "Did you know there are dog programs for children with special needs?" the aide mentioned. "It might be worth looking into. Some of these dogs are specifically trained to help people with limited mobility." "I'll check into it, thanks for the tip," Michael replied, before saying goodbye. On the drive home, Emma couldn't stop talking about her day, how her teacher had been impressed by Cookie's story, and how all her classmates wanted to meet the Blue Bowl dog, as he'd come to be known at the institute. "Dad, Madison, that girl who never talked to me, invited me to her house this weekend to meet her hamster. Can I go?" Emma asked excitedly. "We'll see, sweetheart. We have a lot to figure out," Michael answered evasively. When they got home, Cookie was waiting at the gate, wagging his tail furiously. To Michael's surprise, the yard was clean, with no sign of the destruction expected from a dog left alone for hours. "Cookie, I brought you a surprise," Emma announced, pulling a small rubber toy from her backpack that a classmate had given her. "It's for you to play with." While Emma played with the dog in the yard, Michael went inside to make dinner, his mind still weighed down by the looming job loss. How would he pay the bills? How would he keep Emma in her specialized school? And now, how could they take care of a dog too? The phone rang, interrupting his dark thoughts. It was Dr. Jennifer, Emma's neurologist. "Good evening, Michael. I'm calling to see if you managed to resolve the issue with the extra physical therapy sessions for Emma." Michael sighed deeply. "Dr. Jennifer, to be honest, the situation has gotten even more complicated. I was practically fired today." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "I'm so sorry to hear that, Michael, but there might be something that could help. There's a social program for children with Emma's condition that offers free physical therapy. The waiting list is long, but given the urgency of her case, I believe we can secure a spot." It was as if a small ray of hope pierced the dark. Clouds hanging over Michael. "That would be wonderful, Doctor. What do I need to do?" "I'll email you the forms today. Fill them out and return them as soon as possible. We'll also need a socioeconomic evaluation, but with your current situation, I don't foresee any issues with approval." After hanging up, Michael leaned against the kitchen wall, allowing himself a moment of relief. At least Emma's physical therapy would be secured. Now he needed to figure out how to manage the rest. He stepped into the backyard and found a scene that warmed his heart. Emma was tossing a rubber ball and Rex ran to fetch it, bringing it back directly into the girl's lap. His daughter's face glowed with a joy he hadn't seen in a long time. "Look, Dad, he knows how to play fetch," Emma exclaimed. "And guess what's even more amazing? When the ball lands far from my chair, he always brings it right to my hand like he knows I can't go get it." Michael watched closely and realized Emma was right. The dog didn't just drop the ball on the ground, he delivered it straight to her hands. There was a remarkable intelligence and sensitivity in the animal. During dinner, Michael decided to be honest with his daughter about part of their situation. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something serious. The company I work for is going through some tough times, and I might need to find another job." "Soon?" The girl's eyes widened with worry. "Does that mean we'll have to move, that I'll have to change schools?" she asked, her voice trembling. No, sweetheart, we're staying here and you'll keep going to the institute. We'll just need to be more careful with our spending for a while," he reassured her, omitting the full gravity of the situation. "What about Rex?" Emma asked, fear in her voice. Michael glanced through the kitchen window into the backyard, where the dog rested peacefully under the shade. "Rex is staying with us," he declared, surprising himself with his own decision. "But we need to take him to the vet to make sure he's okay." Emma's face lit up. "Really, Dad? Can we keep him forever?" "Forever is a long time, kiddo," Michael laughed. "But yes, if no one comes looking for him, Rex will be part of our family." That night, as he got Emma ready for bed, Michael noticed how much more talkative she was, excitedly sharing all her plans for Rex, teaching him more tricks, and making a special corner for him in her room. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" Emma asked after brushing her teeth. "Of course, sweetheart. Today, during my therapy session with Allison, I stood on my own for almost 10 seconds, she said, her eyes shining. "I didn't tell you earlier because I wanted to surprise you when I could take a few steps, but I think Rex is bringing me luck." Michael felt tears welling in his eyes. The therapist had said it would take months, maybe years, for Emma to regain some mobility, and now she was reporting unexpected progress. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," he said, carefully hugging her. "I'm so proud of you." Allison was super excited too. She said if I keep improving, maybe I can start using crutches soon instead of the wheelchair all the time. "Then let's work hard for that," promised Michael, tucking her in with the unicorn-patterned blanket she loved so much. "Good night, Dad." "Love you," murmured Emma, her eyes already closed. "Love you too, Princess, more than anything in this world." When he left the room, Michael found Rex sitting patiently in the hallway, as if standing guard. He crouched down and stroked the dog's head. "I don't know where you came from, buddy, but you showed up at just the right time," he said softly. "Thank you for bringing my daughter back." The dog looked at him with those intelligent eyes and rested its muzzle on his knee, as if understanding every word. The next morning, Michael woke earlier than usual. He'd spent much of the night researching therapy and assistance dogs online and was amazed by the stories he found. Some animals could detect epileptic seizures before they happened, others helped people with mobility issues move around, and there were even cases of dogs trained to help children with autism socialize better. Rex's behavior with Emma, bringing her objects, placing them directly in her hands, his apparent awareness of her limitations, made Michael wonder if the dog had received some kind of training before. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching through the window as Rex calmly explored the backyard in the soft morning light. He needed to make some important decisions. The severance package would keep them afloat for a few months, but he had to find a new job soon. He also needed to take Rex to the vet to check his health and see if he had an identification microchip. Emma wheeled into the kitchen, maneuvering her chair skillfully. "Morning, Dad. Where's Rex?" "Good morning, sweetheart. He's in." "To the backyard," Michael replied, pouring her a glass of milk. "I'm taking him to the vet after I drop you off at school. Can I come too? Please?" Emma begged, her eyes pleading. "Honey, you can't miss class. I promise I'll tell you everything when I pick you up." Emma pouted in disappointment but didn't argue. As they ate breakfast, Michael noticed her moving her legs under the table, something she rarely did before. "Dad, I was thinking that what if we made an Instagram for Rex? Everyone at school is curious about him," Emma suggested, nibbling on toast. "Let's take it slow, sweetheart," Michael chuckled. First, we need to make sure he's healthy and doesn't already have an owner looking for him. After dropping Emma off at the institute, Michael returned home to find Rex waiting patiently at the gate. He put an improvised leash on the dog and led him to the car. "All right, buddy. Time to learn more about you," he said as Rex obediently hopped into the back seat. The veterinary clinic was busy when they arrived. Dr. Amanda, a young vet with a kind expression, examined Rex carefully. "He's a little thin and has some intestinal parasites, but nothing serious," she explained after the checkup. "No microchip, and judging by his behavior, I'd say he's a well-socialized dog who was probably abandoned. He's shown some really special behavior with my daughter, who uses a wheelchair," Michael told her. "He brings things right to her hands, like he understands her limitations." The vet smiled, intrigued. "That's very interesting. Some breeds have a natural predisposition for assistance work. By his looks, he's got some Labrador in him, one of the best breeds for that kind of role. He might have received some basic training before." "Is there any way to tell if he belonged to someone?" asked Michael. "We could post his photo in lost pet groups on social media," suggested Dr. Amanda. "But honestly, given his physical condition and the lack of a microchip, I suspect he was abandoned. Unfortunately, it's very common." Michael thanked her and paid for the visit, the medication for parasites, and the vaccines Cookie needed, feeling the pinch in his wallet, but recognizing the necessity of the investment. On the way back, he stopped at a pet store and bought a collar, a name tag, quality dog food, and some basic toys. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Back at work, Michael tried to focus on the spreadsheets, but his mind was divided between worries about his job, Sarah's health, and now Cookie. During lunch, he got a call from the school. "Mr. Johnson? This is Margaret. Sorry to bother." But something happened that you should know about." Michael's heart raced. "Is Emma okay?" Yes, she's fine. Actually, it's about the dog." He showed up at the school again with the blue bowl in his mouth. "Since the principal isn't here today, we managed to keep him in the yard with Emma during recess. The kids were overjoyed. But I thought you should know he got out of the house." Michael was stunned. He had left Cookie safely secured in the fenced backyard. "That's impossible. How could he have gotten out?" "I don't know, but he's definitely here and he looks just fine," Margaret assured him. "Don't worry, we'll keep him safe until school lets out. Please don't let him leave." "I'll leave work early today to pick them both up," Michael said, concerned. After hanging up, Michael realized he had a decision to make about the severance package. With the growing bond between Cookie and Emma and the clear benefits the dog brought to his daughter's development, maybe it was best to accept the offer, take the 3 months' pay and use that time to find a new job, one with more flexible hours that would let him take better care of Emma. At 3 p.m., he left the office after informing Robert Wilson of his decision. Robert seemed genuinely relieved that Michael had accepted the agreement without resistance. He drove straight to the institute, wondering how Cookie had managed to escape and find his way to the school. When he arrived, he was met with an unusual sight. In the yard, Emma stood at the center of a circle of children, and Cookie was performing simple tricks like shaking paws, lying down, and rolling over. The little audience cheered enthusiastically with every command Emma gave, which the dog obeyed promptly. "He's really something special," Margaret remarked, watching the scene beside Michael. "Look how perfectly he listens to Emma, even with all this commotion around them." "I don't understand how he found his way here," Michael admitted. "Dogs have an incredible sense of direction, and when there's a strong bond, like there clearly is between him and Emma, they can do extraordinary things." The monitor explained. "Have you thought about registering him as a service dog? Emma told us about her progress in physical therapy." "I'm just starting to look into that," Michael replied. "The vet also mentioned he has potential." Just then Emma spotted her father and waved excitedly. "Dad, look what Cookie did today. He brought treats for everyone." Michael walked over and saw that the famous blue bowl was filled with dog biscuits, and Emma was handing them out so each child could reward Cookie for his tricks. "I see he's quite the hit," commented Michael, smiling at his daughter. "Dad, the substitute principal, Mrs. Thompson, said if Cookie passes a behavior test, he can visit me at school on Fridays. Isn't that amazing?" Emma's excitement was contagious, and Michael couldn't bring himself to mention his recent layoff. This wasn't the time for worries. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Let's talk to Dr. Amanda to see how we can arrange this test." On the way home, Emma eagerly recounted how Cookie had shown up during science class, scratching at the classroom door until the curious teacher opened it to see what was happening. "And then, Dad, he walked right in, came straight to my desk and put his bowl on it. Everyone was amazed. Teacher Rebecca said she'd never seen anything like it." "Emma, that's fascinating, but I'm worried about how he got out of the yard," Michael remarked, thoughtfully. "We'll need to check if there's a hole in the fence." When they got home, Michael carefully inspected the entire perimeter of the yard, but found no opening big enough for a dog Cookie's size. It was a mystery how he'd escaped. At dinner, Michael decided it was time to be honest with Emma about his job situation. "Sweetheart, remember I told you the company was having trouble?" he began cautiously. "Today I agreed to leave my job." Emma's eyes widened with concern. "You got fired, Dad?" she asked softly. "It was a mutual agreement." "Honey, I'll get some money to help us for a few months, and in that time I'll look for a new job, maybe even a better one," he explained, trying to sound optimistic. "The upside is I'll have more time to take you to physical therapy and look after Cookie." "But what if you can't find another job?" Emma asked, ever sharp. "I'll find one, I'm sure," Michael assured her, with more confidence than he felt. "I'm a good accountant and I know a lot of people in the field. Plus, I have some news. Dr. Jennifer got you into a special free physical therapy program. That'll help a lot." Emma's expression softened slightly. "Everything will work out, right, Dad?" "It will, sweetheart. It always has, hasn't it?" he replied, reaching for her hand. "Since the day you were born, we've faced plenty of challenges. Losing your mom was the hardest, but we kept going. The accident was another awful time, but we're getting through it. We'll get through this too." Emma smiled, comforted by her father's words. Just then, Cookie, who had been lying near the table, got up and rested his head on her lap, as if to comfort her too. "See, Dad? Even Cookie knows everything will be okay," Emma said, stroking the dog's head. In the days that followed, Michael focused on three things: finding a new job taking care of Emma's health, and looking into how Cookie could officially become a certified assistance dog. Dr. Amanda, the vet who had treated Cookie, recommended an organization called Helping Paws, which specialized in evaluating and training assistance dogs. The full program was expensive, but they offered scholarships for low-income families, especially for children with disabilities. "The selection process is strict," explained Patricia Murphy, the head trainer, when Michael brought Cookie in for a preliminary evaluation. "Not every dog has the temperament or intelligence needed to become a certified assistance dog." But to Patricia's surprise, Cookie showed a remarkable natural aptitude in the initial tests. His focus, obedience, and, most importantly, his sensitivity to human needs were exceptional. "It's rare to see a dog with no formal training display this kind of intuitive behavior," remarked Patricia, after observing how Cookie searched for objects and delivered them directly into Emma's hands. "He may have had some basic training in the past, but there's something more here, a special connection." "So there's a chance he could be accepted into the program?" asked Michael, hopeful. "More than a chance, Mr. Johnson. I'm practically certain he'll be accepted, and given your family's circumstances, I believe we can secure a full scholarship." That news brought immense relief to Michael. If Cookie became a certified assistance dog, he wouldn't just be able to accompany Emma everywhere, including school. He could also help her concretely with daily tasks, giving her more independence. Meanwhile, Emma's intensive physical therapy was starting to show surprising results. Dr. Rachel, the new physical therapist in the social program, was impressed with the girl's progress. "Emma has incredible determination," she said, after a particularly productive session. "Usually, children with similar injuries take much longer to regain this level of muscle control. I think she's motivated by Cookie," Michael explained, watching his daughter push through the exercises. "She says she wants to walk him holding the leash herself, instead of giving commands from her chair." Dr. Rachel smiled. "That's a powerful motivation. Sometimes all we need is a goal that inspires us to push past our limits." On the professional front, Michael sent out resumes daily and attended interviews, but the accounting job market was tough, with many companies downsizing rather than hiring. His savings, combined with his severance pay, were dwindling faster than he liked. One morning, while Emma was at school and Michael worked on his laptop searching for job openings, the doorbell rang. When he opened the door, he faced a well-dressed man in his 40s with a serious expression. "Good morning. Are you Michael Johnson?" The visitor asked. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" The man held out a photo of Cookie. "My name is Raymond Parker. I'm looking for this dog. I was told he's with you." Michael felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. The fear of losing Cookie, especially now that he had become so important to Emma, was overwhelming. "How did you know he was here?" he asked defensively. "I saw a post on social media in a veterinary clinic group," Raymond explained. "I recognized him immediately. This dog's name is Rex, and he disappeared from my training center almost a month ago." Training center? That would explain Cookie's unusual skills. "Was he being trained as an assistance dog?" Michael asked. Raymond hesitated briefly before answering. "Something like that. He was in a specialized program. It cost me a lot of money and time, and I need him back." There was something in Raymond's tone that made Michael uneasy, a certain coldness when referring to the dog, as if he were just an investment. "Look, Cookie, or Rex as you call him, showed up at my daughter's school a few weeks ago. She uses a wheelchair, and he's developed a special bond with her. We're even in the process of certifying him as her official assistance dog. I'm sorry about your daughter's situation, but that dog belongs to me," Raymond insisted, his voice hardening. "I have documents to prove it." "Can I see those documents?" Michael asked, trying to stay calm. Raymond rummaged through his briefcase and pulled out some papers, showing them to Michael. There was a purchase certificate, vaccination records, and even photos of Cookie as a puppy. Michael's heart sank. The documents seemed legitimate. But how would he explain this to Emma? How could he tell her they'd have to give Cookie back, the dog who had brought so much joy and progress into her life? "Mr. Parker, I understand your position, but I must ask you to consider the situation. My daughter suffered a serious accident, lost her mother a few years ago, and this dog is the first thing that's brought real happiness back into her life. He's helping her recover, both emotionally and physically." "I'm sorry, but I can't." "Just let him go," replied Raymond, unmoved. "I'm willing to give you a week to prepare your daughter, but after that I'll come back for Rex. If necessary, I'll bring the authorities with me." At that moment, as if sensing the tension, Cookie appeared at the door, eyeing the visitor warily. To Michael's surprise, instead of showing recognition or excitement at seeing his supposed former owner, the dog backed away, positioning himself behind Michael's legs as if seeking protection. Raymond noticed and seemed annoyed. He was always a bit skittish, part of the training problem. That reaction from Cookie only made Michael more suspicious. "I'll need to verify these documents more carefully," he said firmly, "and talk to my daughter. A week isn't nearly enough." "Time." "It's more than enough," Raymond insisted, putting the papers away. "I'll be back next Saturday. Be ready to return the dog or we'll have trouble." After Raymond left, Michael sat on the porch trying to process what had just happened. Cookie approached and rested his head on Michael's knee, as if understanding his worry. "What are we going to do, buddy?" Michael murmured, stroking the dog's head. "I can't just hand you over and break Emma's heart, but I also don't want legal trouble." He decided to call Patricia, the trainer from Helping Paws, for advice. After explaining the situation, she sounded concerned. "Michael, that name, Raymond Parker, rings a negative bell for me," she said. "Let me check with some colleagues in the field. There are people who pose as legitimate trainers but are actually involved in shady practices." Michael also decided to consult a lawyer friend, Robert Wilson, whom he'd met in his previous job. Robert listened carefully to the story and offered some guidance. If he truly has documents proving ownership of the dog, legally he'd have the right to reclaim him, he explained. However, there are some considerations. First, if the animal was deliberately abandoned, that could weaken his claim. Second, In cases involving pets, courts have started considering the animal's well-being and adaptation to their new home, especially when children are involved. What if Cookie is being trained as an assistance dog for Emma? Wouldn't that give her some priority rights? Michael asked, searching for a way out. Possibly, especially if you've already started a formal certification process, Robert replied. My advice, gather as much documentation as possible about the dog's relationship with your daughter. Medical records showing improvements, statements from school, the physical therapist, the training organization, and scrutinize this man's documents carefully. There might be inconsistencies. By the time he picked Emma up from school, Michael was emotionally drained but determined to protect his daughter's happiness. He chose not to tell her about Raymond's visit right away, wanting to investigate further and have a plan first. Dad, today was amazing, Emma said excitedly as they walked into the house. In physical therapy, I stood on the parallel bars for almost a whole minute. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Michael replied, genuinely happy for her progress. Doctor, Rachel said that if I keep improving, I might soon be able to use special walkers instead of the wheelchair, at least for short distances. Then I'll be able to walk Rex myself while holding his leash. Hearing his name, Rex ran over to greet them, wagging his tail happily. He immediately went to Emma, resting his head on her lap and gazing at her with obvious adoration. Hey, Birdie, I missed you too. Emma leaned down to hug the dog. Dad, can I feed him dinner tonight? Of course you can, sweetheart, Michael agreed, watching their interaction. There was no denying the special bond between them. How could he let Raymond take Rex away? He needed to act fast. In the following days, Michael worked on multiple fronts at once. He contacted the veterinary clinic, requesting a formal statement about Rex's condition when he first brought him in. Dr. Amanda went further, providing detailed documentation, including the fact that the dog had shown signs of stress and malnutrition, inconsistent with the care of a professional trainer. Patricia from Helping Paws also returned with troubling news. Michael, I spoke with several colleagues in the field, and what I found out about Raymond Parker isn't good, she revealed over the phone. He's been reported 3 times for animal abuse during training. He uses outdated, cruel methods, and even had his training license suspended once. If Rex really came from his center, he probably ran away for a good reason. That would explain his reaction when he saw Raymond, Michael remarked, remembering how the dog had hidden behind him. Exactly. Dogs have excellent memories, especially for people who've hurt them, Patricia confirmed. I'm willing to testify if needed. Michael also secured statements from the school, Margaret and teacher Rebecca, documenting how Rex had positively impacted Emma's social and emotional development. Dr. Rachel, the physical therapist, provided detailed reports showing the acceleration in the girl's progress since the dog's arrival. As Saturday approached, the day Raymond had promised to return, Michael finally decided he needed to be honest with Emma. On Friday after dinner, he sat with her in the living room. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something important about Rex, he began carefully. Emma's eyes instantly filled with alarm. Is he sick? She asked anxiously. No, he's fine, Michael reassured her. But a man showed up claiming to be his old owner. He wants to take him back. Emma's face paled. No, Rex is ours now. He chose us, she protested, her voice trembling. I know, honey, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure he stays with us, Michael promised, holding her hands. I've talked to people who are helping us. This man, Raymond, doesn't seem to have treated Rex well in the past. That's probably why he ran away and found us. Was he mean to Rex? Emma asked, her eyes wide with horror. Michael hesitated, not wanting to overwhelm her with upsetting details, but knowing he had to be honest. There are signs that he was. Patricia from the training center knows people who worked with him, and says his methods are very harsh. We can't let him take Rex, Dad. Emma was on the verge of tears. He'll hurt him. I won't let that happen, Emma, I promise, Michael said, with a determination he hadn't felt since losing Sarah. We'll fight for Rex, together. That night, after putting Emma to bed, Michael reviewed all the documents he had gathered. With Robert's help, he identified some inconsistencies in the documents presented by Raymond. The purchase record, for example, had dates that didn't match the initial vaccinations. Additionally, the animal's description didn't include some of Cookie's distinctive markings, like the small white star-shaped spot on his chest. Saturday arrived, and with it, an unexpected storm. Heavy rain had been pounding the city since dawn. Michael was tense, expecting Raymond's visit at any moment. Emma stayed by Cookie's side the entire time, as if she feared he might disappear if she left him alone for even a second. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Michael took a deep breath, exchanged a meaningful glance with Emma, and went to answer. As expected, it was Raymond, accompanied by another man who introduced himself as his lawyer. "I've come for my dog as agreed," Raymond declared bluntly. "Mr. Parker, before anything else, I'd like you to review some documents," Michael replied, standing firm. "After our conversation, I did some digging." Michael reluctantly invited them inside. In the living room, Emma sat in her wheelchair with Cookie beside her in a protective stance. When Raymond entered, Cookie's reaction was immediate and telling. The dog visibly shrank back, let out a low whimper, and pressed himself against Emma's chair. "See how he reacts to you," Michael pointed out. "Is this the behavior of an animal toward its beloved owner?" Raymond's lawyer seemed to notice the same thing, frowning slightly. "Rex has always been like this, a bit skittish. That's why he didn't do well in training," Raymond justified, growing impatient. "I don't have time for this. I came for my dog, and that's final." "First, I'd like you both to look at these documents," Michael insisted, spreading the papers on the table. "We have statements from the veterinarian about Cookie's health when we found him, indicating possible mistreatment. Testimonies from animal training experts questioning your methods, Mr. Parker, and medical records showing how his presence has been crucial for my daughter's recovery." The lawyer examined the documents with growing interest, while Raymond grew visibly irritated. "None of this changes the fact that the dog is my property," Raymond argued. "Is that true, Raymond?" Emma asked softly but firmly. "Did Cookie run away from your kennel because you hit him?" The silence that followed was telling. Raymond shot a furious glare at the girl. "I don't know what you've been told, kid, but professional dog training requires discipline." "Discipline isn't the same as cruelty," Patricia interjected, who Michael had asked to be present, and who now entered the room after being announced by a neighbor Michael had asked to keep watch. "Ethical trainers don't produce dogs that show extreme fear at the sight of them." Raymond turned, surprised by the newcomer. "Who are you?" "Patricia Murphy from Helping Paws. We're in the process of certifying Cookie as an official assistant. Dog for Emma," she introduced herself with authority. "And I've documented multiple cases of mistreatment at your training center, Mr. Parker, cases that Animal Protection would be very interested in investigating." Raymond's lawyer seemed uneasy with this information. "Raymond, perhaps we should speak privately for a moment," he suggested, clearly reconsidering the situation. As the two men stepped into the hallway, Emma looked at her father with cautious hope. "Will this work, Dad?" "We're doing our best, sweetheart," Michael replied, stroking her hair. "Patricia, thank you for coming." "It was the least I could do," the trainer answered, kneeling to examine Cookie more closely. "Look how anxious he is. He really recognizes Raymond, and not in a positive way." After a few minutes, Raymond and his lawyer returned to the room. "Mr. Johnson, my client is willing to consider a settlement," the lawyer began in a professional tone. "We understand the bond that has formed between the dog and your daughter, and the special circumstances involved." "What kind of settlement?" asked Michael, suspicious. "A financial compensation for the value of the investment in the initial training," the lawyer specified. "In exchange, my client would officially transfer ownership of the animal to your family." Michael felt a mix of relief and worry. It was a way out, but money was precisely what he didn't have. What would the amount of this compensation be? Raymond mentioned a sum that made Michael pale. It was practically everything he had saved for Emma's treatments. "That's outrageous," protested Patricia. "That amount doesn't reflect the real investment at all, especially considering the dog was in poor condition when found." Just then the doorbell rang again. Michael, surprised, went to answer. At the door stood Margaret, accompanied by several others he recognized as parents and staff from the New Beginnings Institute. "I hope we're not interrupting," said Margaret with a determined smile. But when Emma told the school yesterday about possibly losing Cookie, we decided we couldn't just stand by. We've all seen how this dog has transformed Emma, added the teacher Rebecca, who was among the group, and how she, in turn, has inspired other children with her determination. Other parents nodded, some holding makeshift signs with phrases like "Cookie stays" and "Save the Blue Bowl Dog." "What is this?" questioned Raymond, visibly disturbed by the situation slipping out of his control. "This, Mr. Parker, is a community that cares," replied Michael with renewed confidence. "People who've witnessed the positive impact Cookie has had not just on my daughter's life, but on an entire school of special needs children. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out." Now, continuing, Raymond's lawyer pulled him aside again, and their conversation seemed increasingly tense. Meanwhile, Margaret explained to Michael that the story had spread quickly through the school community, and even among disability support groups in the city. A small crowd had now gathered in front of the house, many having come despite the persistent rain. "Mr. Parker," the lawyer called after their brief huddle, "I strongly suggest we reconsider our position. The negative publicity that could result from this." Raymond, visibly frustrated, looked out the window and saw the crowd. Outside, some already beginning to chant slogans demanding Cookie stay. "This is ridiculous, it's just a dog," he exclaimed, exasperated. "Not to me," said Emma with surprising determination for a 9-year-old. "To me, he's the friend who made me want to get better, who made me believe I could walk again one day. And look what he did for you," she pointed at Raymond. "He ran away because you didn't treat him well. A well-treated animal doesn't run away." The silence that followed was profound. Even Raymond seemed at a loss for words in the face of the girl's honesty. Finally, the lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Johnson, given the new circumstances, my client is willing to drop all claims to the animal on one condition, that there be no negative publicity about him or his training center." Michael exchanged glances with Patricia, who gave a slight nod. "We accept the condition as long as Mr. Have Parker sign a document officially transferring ownership of Cookie to us and acknowledging the legitimacy of the ongoing assistance. Dog certification process," Teresa added, "and that the proper authorities conduct a thorough inspection of your training center to ensure the welfare of the other animals under your care." Raymond seemed about to protest, but his lawyer placed a hand on his shoulder in a clear deterrent gesture. "That's acceptable," the lawyer replied, though Raymond looked far from pleased. With Robert's help, who had arrived shortly after, the impromptu protest began. The necessary documents were drafted and signed right there at Michael's dining table. Raymond and his lawyer quickly left, avoiding the growing crowd outside. When Michael announced the outcome to the gathered community, there was an explosion of joy. Margaret hugged Emma, who couldn't stop smiling as she petted Cookie, now officially hers. "We did it, Dad. Cookie is ours forever," she exclaimed, tears of happiness in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, we did," Michael replied, equally moved. The impromptu celebration lasted all afternoon, despite the persistent rain. Neighbors Michael barely knew showed up with food and drinks. The story of the Blue Bowl Dog had touched many hearts. During the festivities, Michael was approached by a man he didn't recognize, who introduced himself as Paul Reynolds. "Mr. Johnson, my wife volunteers at the New Beginnings Institute. She told me about you and your daughter, and especially about this extraordinary dog," Paul began. "I own a chain of pet stores in the area, and I'd like to make a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Michael asked, curious. "Our company is launching a new line of products for pets with special needs and their owners. We'd love for Cookie and Emma to be the faces of this campaign. It would be a paid partnership, of course, and would include all the veterinary care Cookie might need." Michael was stunned. "Mr. Reynolds, this is an unexpected. Take your time to think it over. It's not just about marketing, you see," Paul continued. "My own daughter has cerebral palsy, and I know firsthand how an animal can transform the life of a child with disabilities. We want to raise awareness, and your story is perfect for that." The offer seemed almost too good to be true. After Paul walked away, Patricia approached Michael. "I know Paul. He's a man of integrity, and his company truly invests in inclusion and animal welfare causes. You should consider his offer. In the weeks that followed, Michael and Emma's lives changed in ways they never imagined. The advertising campaign featuring Cookie and Emma was a success, bringing not just temporary financial stability, but also raising awareness about the benefits of assistance dogs. Their story inspired the creation of a program at the New Beginnings Institute, in partnership with local animal shelters, where rescued dogs were evaluated for training as therapy animals for children with various disabilities. Cookie, now officially certified as an assistance dog, accompanied Emma everywhere, even to school. His popularity among the children was such that Principal Richard, initially resistant, eventually allowed a monthly special class with Cookie, where Emma and her father explained the work of assistance dogs to other students. Emma's physical progress continued to amaze her doctors. In 4 months, she went from a wheelchair to a special walker, then to crutches, managing to stand and take small steps for increasingly longer periods. The most emotional moment was when, during a physical therapy session, Emma took her first steps without support, walking straight toward Cookie, who waited patiently on the other side of the room. "Look, Dad, I'm walking," she exclaimed, her face glowing with effort and triumph. Michael, unable to hold back tears, imagined Sarah somewhere, watching proudly as their daughter persevered. The campaign also opened professional doors for Michael. Paul Reynolds, impressed by his integrity and determination, offered him a position in his company's finance department with a better salary and, more importantly, flexibility to attend Emma's treatments. One Saturday afternoon, nearly 6 months after the confrontation with Raymond, Michael watched Emma in the backyard, using her crutches to throw a ball for Cookie. The dog, always attuned to the girl's needs, adjusted his play to her pace. Never going too far, always returning the ball straight to her hands. Patricia, who regularly checked in on the training progress, remarked, "Cookie has exceeded all expectations. The connection he shares with Emma is something we could try to replicate for years through training, but it would never be the same. It's like they understand each other on a level beyond words. Sometimes I think Sarah had something to do with it," Michael confessed, watching his daughter laugh as Cookie performed an impromptu spin. "As if she found a way to keep looking after our girl, even without being here physically." "Who knows?" Patricia smiled. "The universe works in mysterious ways. However Cookie came into your lives, I have no doubt he was meant to be part of this family." At that moment, Emma waved, calling her father to join them in their game. Michael smiled and walked toward the two beings who had completely transformed his life. "You know, Cookie," Emma said, stroking the dog's ears after their playtime, "when Mom left, I thought I'd never truly be happy again, and after the sea accident, I was sure of it. But you proved me wrong. Thank you for never giving up on me." As if understanding every word, Cookie gently licked Emma's face and rested his head in her lap, his amber eyes conveying a devotion that transcended the barrier between species. That night, after putting Emma to bed, Michael sat on the porch gazing at the stars. Cookie joined him, lying at his feet with a contented sigh. "You know you changed our lives, don't you?" Michael murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. "You showed up right when we needed you most. Some might call it coincidence, but I'd rather believe it was something more." On the horizon, the full moon illuminated the city, the same moon Sarah had loved to watch. For just a moment, Michael let himself believe she was there somehow, seeing the family she'd left behind find their way back to happiness through the unexpected love of a dog with a blue bowl. A year after Cookie appeared at the school, the New Beginnings Institute held a special ceremony. The therapy animal program, initially a small pilot project inspired by Cookie, had grown and now benefited dozens of children. Emma, using only a light cane for support, stepped onto the small stage set up in the courtyard, with Cookie faithfully by her side. "When I was stuck in a wheelchair, I thought my life was over," she began, with a confidence that even surprised Michael. "But then this special dog with a blue bowl came along and changed everything. He showed me there's always hope, even in the darkest moments. And I want all the children going through tough times to have this hope too." The crowd applauded tearfully as Emma cut the ribbon for the grand opening of Cookie Space, a specially designed area for animal-assisted therapy inside the institute. Beside her, her father watched proudly at the strong, determined young woman his daughter had become, thanks in large part to the unconditional love of a dog that had once mysteriously appeared with a blue bowl. The end. So, what did you think of this heartwarming journey of resilience? Your opinion means the world to us. Let us know in the comments what touched your heart most in this story, and if you've ever witnessed the life-changing power animals can have. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more soul-warming stories.